want to introduce myself. I'm Tim Brown. I'm the Hillyer director. Uh, Today, I'm going to be going over the resource document that I have available on our website where the call for proposals is currently listed. So let me walk you through the procedure. This is the call for proposals 2025. What that means is that those submissions that come in this year will be selected and then put into the schedule for next year starting in February. So there's a quick turnaround, so that's something you have to keep in mind. When the call closes at the end of August, there'll be about a month or maybe 5 to 6 weeks that the committee will review, and then those who are selected will be announced right away, possibly in mid to late October. And I will then be reaching out to all of those who are selected and building you into the schedule for next year. So it does happen rather quickly. So these are the dates. As I mentioned, it closed at the end of August. And the time frame for the exhibitions will start actually in February and not January, because I actually have exhibitions scheduled already for the month of January. And we'll probably go into January of the following year, which is January 2026. Most people don't know this, but we do actually accept submissions from all over, not just the DMV area, but nationally and internationally. Although traditionally we select probably 70% of the artists selected are from the DMV area. So historically, Hillyer has always had what we call an advisory committee. It has always been the core of how Hillyer operated. It wanted to always have this sort of strong connection to the community of artists within which it's operating. So there, people like Renee Stout, William Christenberry, David Driscoll were actually the first committee members to serve on the committee. They served a slightly different function back in 2006, but nonetheless, they established a foundation for how Hillyer operated going forward. The process is a lot more formal now. There's actually a formal committee. And more recently, I have been rotating that committee to try to maintain a higher degree of impartiality, and also diversifying the committee members so that we can select artists from a diverse range of mediums, experience levels, and backgrounds. So as I mentioned, we do go through this selection process that takes about 4 to 5 weeks. And after that is completed, we choose between 25 and 35 emerging and accomplished artists and curators for the next exhibition cycle. I'll explain the difference between artists and curators. So I do have a little note here very early on. The solo artist category is intended for individual artist submissions and not group shows. A lot of people try to fit themselves into the middle. But for our purposes, we have to be very clear in making that distinction. If you want to list yourself as a curator, then you have to be committed to proposing an exhibition that is not solely about your work, but about the work of other artists who fit within your curatorial idea or framework for the exhibition. That's how you're going to be reviewed. So when the committee is going through and looking at all the submissions, if they can't quite make sense if you're an artist or curator, then there's no place to put you, and then you kind of get lost in the selection process. When you are selected, you will receive one of the following: an exhibition in one of the 3 gallery spaces. So we do not award 2 gallery spaces to any single artist. It's always one. You're going to receive a $400 stipend. That's a little bit more than this year. You're going to receive an exhibition opening and reception. You will receive assistance with your installations. Most artists, or at least half the artists, pretty much take care of their own installations, or they come with their own team. There are some, however, who are not prepared to do installations, or they may not have the experience, so we will assist. In some cases, we'll even install the entire show if someone from abroad, for example, and they cannot make it to the States. We do provide labels and didactics. You have some flexibility in terms of how you want to do that, but just letting you know that we provide that as a courtesy to you. We also handle all the marketing and press releases. We also offer public programs in conjunction with your exhibition. We create digital content that's published online. Usually that's in the form of blog posts. We do a lot of video recordings and video interviews with the featured artists that also goes up online. And the committee members also are available to serve as mentors for people who would like to share some ideas or work through some ideas with a mentor to help put together the sort of the final stages of your proposal. So the way the proposals are received are through an online form. And in our case, we use a Google form. And this year I divided it into 4 sections. One is basically general information. It's more demographic information more than anything, your contact information, your proposal, which is going to include your exhibition proposal, your statement, artist statement or curatorial statement, and your biography. There are going to be sections for support materials, and then engagement is the program side of things in terms of how you would like people to engage with your exhibition while it's up for that month. So let's go over the general information. As I mentioned before, it's mostly demographic. Just gives us an idea of who you are, what your status is as an artist. BIPOC is a optional thing. It's more just kind of get a sense of the diversity of the submissions. It doesn't impact your selection in any way. It's a category that granting agencies like DC Commission use a lot, and so I include them in my narrative descriptions when filling out applications. So having that data is just kind of helpful. In the proposal section, you will include whether you're an artist or an artist or curator statement, an exhibition title, exhibition description, and biography. Each section has to be 150 words, so that's really important. If you give me a long description, I'm going to have to cut it. You're not going to want to leave that up to me. So it's best that you think about that ahead of time before you do that. Artist statement, same thing, 150 words, but it should be a general overview of your work. So if you've been a practicing artist for some time, it's helpful to have a sense of what your development has been as an artist, how you were trained, what are some of your early stages of development, to give us a context for, what your current proposal is. So it's tended to be general, the exhibition proposal specific. So as I just mentioned, you want your exhibition proposal to be specific to the content of this particular exhibition, in contrast to your statement, which is more of a general overview. The reason why this is helpful too is because it may help the jurors or the committee members understand if you're moving in a new direction, or you decided to maybe take a previous initiative and go in a slightly different direction. It may even help in the innovation category, which is part of the review process I'll talk about later. So I mentioned biography. Again, main thing is sticking to the 150 words. So you want to be clear and concise. But here you're just providing a summary of your life and work. Obviously, it's more relevant if you provide details that are kind of related to the historical development of your life as an artist. Support materials. These are pretty simple as far as how you add it to the form. It's how you put that content together is where you have to give a little bit more thought. But basically in the form, I'm just asking you to copy and paste a hyperlink that connects to the folder that you set up using whatever service that you're using. Obviously, you need to make sure that the permissions are working and so forth. I'll go through that in a little bit more detail. Engagement. This helps us to figure out how you would like to engage the public while your program is going on. If you're nearby and you can make it to Hillyer, we like to meet with you to discuss what you would like to do programmatically. If you can't make it to Hillyer, we think about what we can do online or what we can do from an educational resource standpoint. Like maybe you want to do a blog post or some kind of live interactive session, or maybe you want to do a virtual studio class or something like that. It's something that I recently added to the application because I'm finding that the public program side of things is what determines if an exhibition is going to be impactful or successful. People don't typically come just to see an exhibition alone. They come because they can also participate in a program that will give them a better understanding of what's on view. Like, for example, Radia Wandamu just had an exhibition, and she felt that it was important to have an artist talk or a talk with a curator. And she thought it was also important to give a demonstration of her process. This is another example of an artist who I had named Xenia Parrish, who decided to do a live demonstration of her painting process, which she did alongside a violin player. So you'll have this option to choose from when you're filling out the form. So as a standard, what we have been doing, at least over the past couple of years, is interviewing each artist that has an exhibition. This is usually done in the gallery once your installation is complete. We also do, as an alternative, a blog post, which is usually in the format of a Q&A blog post. So that's one option, or just a straightforward online program. Opportunities. This is the final section. This is basically a section where we ask for you to commit to the schedule for next year, and also provides an option, an online exhibition option. If you're not selected for an on-site exhibition, this is something that has been coming in handy for us recently, because we get so many submissions, and there are also times too when exhibitions have to be canceled for some reason. Like, I had an artist who the committee members really liked. He was from Nigeria, but when it came time to install his show, he realized he just didn't have the finances to make the trip, let alone install it. So for him, I offered an online exhibition as an alternative, and I worked with him to get that set up. I'm going to be continuing to pursue that option, not just as an alternative to on-site, but as something that is offered at the same time. So when we have an opening during any given month, we'll also be announcing that there'll be online exhibitions opening at that time as well. So here's an example of the one I set up for Idia Agogi. So here, when we do it this way, we kind of have, some flexibility with how we set up the page, as far as the background, the user interface, whether we want videos to be in there, photo galleries, or what have you. Other information, we ask you to choose the options of being an emerging or accomplished artist. I'm going to also talk about the curator proposals, because I think maybe there's some clarification that needs to be offered there, the media that you're submitting, and then again, the engagement component. So emerging and accomplished is pretty straightforward. Basically, if you have not received more than 2 solo exhibitions during your career, then classify yourself as emerging. If you receive more than that, then you're accomplished. Likewise with the curator. So the magic number there is 2. Now, curator submissions, I felt like I need to clarify that a little bit, because it is a little different. If you're submitting a proposal as a curator, define the basic concept of the proposal and how artists will support your curatorial vision for the exhibition. Now, obviously, that can consist of a wide variety of things, but just keep in mind that you want to make a connection between what your vision is for the show and who those artists are going to be and how their work corresponds with that. The statement, really, it's similar to the artist statement, but really what you're providing in this case is instead of a broader overview of your work as an artist, you're providing a broader overview of your career as a curator. That helps to give the jurors a sense of what you have done before, compared to what your proposal is for the exhibition. If this is your first time being a curator, then just specify that this is your first time. Likewise, I mean, it's very similar to being an artist. It's just that in this case, you want to include a history that takes into account anything that you've done as a curator in the past and any pivotal moments that have contributed to your career. and or your development. It helps provide some insights into your proposal overall. Media instructions. So with media, the main thing really is setting up a folder. And you can use a variety of sources for that. It differs just slightly depending on what you're using, but you can use Google Drive, Dropbox, iCloud Drive, WeTransfer, Microsoft OneDrive, or et cetera. It really doesn't matter as long as you can share a link that we can access. That's the main thing. With Google Drive for us, because we use Google, it's important that you select the editor option. This will eliminate any kind of issues we might have with permissions, because when we get the content in, we basically move it to a different location. And the reason why I do this is because I want to represent the content in a way that's more consolidated, so that the committee members do not have to struggle too much to find the information. I basically take it and centralize it so that they don't have to keep looking through folders and trying to find things. It takes too long. I want them to be able to, rather than pick and choose who they're going to review, and that's just something that you open that possibility up when they have to search too hard to find things. I don't want them to do that. I want to take the content, move it, and then represent it in a way where it's all in one place and they can find exactly what they're looking for. So that's why I asked you to do that, because I need to be able to move it. All the links are going to be shared to my address. So regardless of what services you're going to be using, that's important. Dropbox is pretty straightforward. You don't, unlike Google, where you're sharing a folder with me, in this case, you're sharing a folder, but really what you're doing is sharing a link to the folder. So that's different. If you share the folder, then that's going to prompt me to actually open up a Dropbox account, which I don't want to do because we don't have one. So if you're going to share something via Dropbox, just share the link. That's all I need. It will prompt me to download the files. Likewise, with Microsoft OneDrive, you'll notice that there'll be different menu options, but just remember that you're just in the end looking for a link or a link that we can view, and just make sure that the share options are set up appropriately. WeTransfer is also a useful method. The only downside with WeTransfer is it's limited time. So I think the maximum time for a free account is 1 week. I cannot always guarantee that I'm going to download your content within a week. I do check regularly, so it may not be a problem, but if there's a chance that you're using WeTransfer and I've went past the deadline for downloading it, I will send you a message and say, hey, I'm sorry, can you reshare your WeTransfer of content because I no longer have access. So that's the only downside with WeTransfer, although it is pretty easy to use. iCloud Drive, again, is also pretty simple because you're just sharing a link. You're not sharing the folder. So that's the main thing. And you just want to make sure that anyone with the link can access it. And it can be view only, it doesn't matter. We'll be prompted to download the files by accessing the link. All of these links, whether it's iCloud Drive, WeTransfer, Microsoft OneDrive, Dropbox, or Google, are going to be pasted into the space that is provided in the form. With images, I'm asking you to submit 6 images. Do not submit more than that. The images can be all of your artwork, but they can also include diagrams if you feel that's important. Some cases you may even want to share an exhibition space or view. It depends on how you set that up because you also have the option to submit a document, which I'll talk about in a little bit. I'm not going to put too many limits on the images this time around, as long as that there are 6 of them and that they're in the JPEG format. The JPEG format will at least keep the file size down to a manageable size. PNGs and TIFF files tend to be much larger, and it impacts our space limitations. As far as video guidelines are concerned, it's easy to just share a link to where the video is, as long as it's a direct link. I even think you can do this on Instagram. If you have a video there, you should be able to share a direct link to the post. Obviously, YouTube and Vimeo is pretty straightforward. Or you can, the video files aren't too big. You can actually just include them into the folder that you're sharing along with the images. This folder too is also where you would share a one-page document. And I have to emphasize the one page if you want your content to be considered. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But here's an example of a straightforward link on YouTube. And the document has to be one page, but you can be creative with how you actually set up this page. It doesn't necessarily have to be, a Google Doc and you just type in some stuff in. You could actually use a photo editor or even a Google Slides or Keynote or PowerPoint to lay out your content in case you want to show a combination of images, diagrams, etc. You could just kind of lay it out that way and just save that one slide as a PDF and share that put that in your folder. That's if it helps to clarify what you're proposing. Some artists, for example, offer there's a multi-sensory component to their show. There may be a video included. There may be something that you can touch. Maybe it's a projector that's somehow being integrated into the space. You can use this one-page document to kind of demonstrate how that would be used. Editing your submission, you should be able to do that at the very beginning. Well, actually at the very end after you completed everything. You'll also have the option at the beginning to sign into Google. If you do so, I think they give you 30 days to actually update your proposal if you sign in first. You don't have to though. It doesn't really make it all that easier because there is another option that I didn't include in the slide, but I set it up so that you will receive a message after your proposal. But yeah, just like you see here, this is something that you'll see at the end of your submission, but you'll also have this same message come in an email. So the final review is something that takes place after the submission process is closed. And like I said, it takes 4 to 6 weeks. This process is facilitated by me, but reviewed by the advisory committee members, which are now about 13 members. They are all very diverse in background in terms of their level of experience, the discipline that they use, their professional careers. Some are educators, some are professional curators. Some are multifaceted. Some do all those things and have a family at the same time. I mean, they all have different backgrounds. Some have had shows here before, so a lot of them actually dedicate their time to the committee because they actually got their first start through Hillyer, and they want to see other people have the same chance that they had. So this is the rating system that I have set up. Some of it's basic. Obviously, I just want to know where you're from because we do determine what the number is based on where you're from. This is largely too determined by the number of submissions we actually receive. It just so happens most of our submissions are from the DMV area, so we will choose the number of artists accordingly. I actually break up the DMV area into the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia as separate folders because we receive so many. I mean, we may receive 60 to 75 submissions from each area. So that's a lot to oversee. And I have to take that into account when choosing the overall number of artists. This year we chose 21 from the DMV area. So as you can imagine, it gets really challenging choosing who the artists will be because of the large number of submissions. The other categories are more conceptual and focus. They kind of have dual definitions, if you will. And they all kind of, each one kind of has the potential to inform the other. Innovation and originality, subject matter and content, craftsmanship and technique. I even break down really what those individual categories mean, which I think I have in this slide. I'll go over it in a little bit. But I asked them to grade each category from a scale of 1 to 10. And so they basically have a spreadsheet, and they add their information in the spreadsheet along with any kind of comments to support their conclusions. There's also a section for me. So I usually add a comment if there's something about their comments that's not very clear. I'll send them a question and give them an opportunity to respond. So subject matter and content, when I say subject matter, I mean the visual representation, literally the visual representation of what can be seen and identified. Content refers to the concept behind it. Originality and innovation. Originality refers to what is new and individualistic, while innovation pushes the boundaries of what is possible. Craftsmanship and technique is, craftsmanship is the overall quality, whereas technique is more focused on specific methods and skills. When the when the assessments are being made, in the end, it's really like it's a collective understanding of everything that you've submitted, because the committee members are going to want to have some kind of coherent understanding of your proposal. If you're, what you include in your biography, your artist statement, your project description should help them have a better understanding of some of the other things that they're evaluating. If they see that there's a divergence between one and the other, then they may begin to have some doubts about whether or not they know what you're trying to do. So I mentioned about the whole DMV thing. This sort of just demonstrates how I choose the number of artists that are going to be in the exhibition. The obviously the DMV area is very prominent, and usually makes up most of the artists who are selected. But again, it varies. Like last year, I got more international artists than I had the previous year. So I actually selected 4 international artists as opposed to 2. So it really depends on the number, but it has been pretty consistent in terms of the number of DMV artists who are submitting. I do contact everyone after the selection process is complete, even those who are not selected. And I do my best to provide feedback to everyone who's not selected. Sometimes it's, I'll have to do my best because there may not be any specific comments that help explain why the artist wasn't selected. So I can't always give you a clear understanding, but I could give you my own assessment based on the review process. Since I'm facilitating the whole process, I do kind of have a sense of, why some pieces are being selected and why they're not. So I will be providing my own perspective on that process if there's nothing substantial in written form that supports that. Any questions at all about what I covered?
Yeah. What fraction of the evaluation committee is it from last year will be on the committee this year?
Most of them will be on the committee this year because they were just selected. I would say I chose 8 new members last year. And so I'm going to keep them on. There is one member who was on the committee for 15 years. She was the one remaining long-term member. She has stepped down, and I'm replacing her with a new member. All right. Well, I guess we're okay. No questions. Oh, Katie does have a question.
Yes, sorry about that. Thank you for unmuting me. And thank you so much for hosting this. This is incredibly helpful. I had a question about when you were talking about a one-page document that you could add and could do a few different things with. But I kind of lost track of where that was in the submission process. Is that
so when you share the link to that shared folder that includes the images, that's where you can also include the videos and the one-page document. So they can all be in that same folder.
Okay, in the shared folder. So you can add just one page of anything additional.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that one page also limited to 150 words?
No, you can put as much as you can. As long as it's one page, you can put whatever you want to put in it. As long as it it helps clarify your proposal.
So we do 8 points, so you'll need a magnifying glass to read it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to be very careful about what you put in that one page, and squeezing a bunch of 8-point characters probably is not the best idea in the
No,
world,
it's kind of aggressive, yes.
but yeah.
Oh, thank you. I couldn't unmute. So I had a strange circumstance. I was chosen to have a show at Hillyer in 2020. And I opened it in March of 2020, and it was up for 1 week, and then COVID hit, which was unfortunate.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
wondering if you allow people to reapply, even though it would be different work I would be doing, or would you say, well, you really did have a show here, so it's too early to reapply or give someone else a chance?
yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. That was one of the things I inherited when I was hired in November 2021, was coming to the realization that there were a bunch of artists that were selected for 2020 who were not given solo shows. So I don't know if you recall, but I would say 75% of the artists that I had featured in 2022 were artists who were selected in 2020. That was just my courtesy to those artists to be given the shows that they were promised. I just felt like I couldn't really get Hillyer underway unless that was addressed. But in your case, you kind of fall like in the middle. So
Yes.
to answer your question, yes, you do qualify. That will not be held against you, since that was a very difficult transition for us, and really wasn't really fair, not only to the artists, but also even to the committee members as well. So when I reopened the gallery, I made sure to address that, and I most certainly don't want to have that work against you
Okay,
either. So
you.
yeah,
All right.
I
And,
welcome your proposal. No problem.
thank you.
Hi, Timothy. This is Joe Jamaldinian. Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Thank you for the presentation, by the way. Very helpful. With respect to the video, can you give us a little bit of your thoughts about what would you like to see in there regarding supporting, specific work or works?
Well, the main reason why I included it is because the artists well, at least the artists we have selected since I've been here have been so multifaceted that I realized that a lot of what they've been presenting hasn't been fully understood or appreciated by the committee members. Like for example, we have artists that use projectors and monitors in their show. This is not always very clear in the proposals that I receive. So I decided to include those if you are one of those artists where your proposal has that kind of multi-sensory component. It will help the jurors better understand your project, because there's been so many instances where I mean, I know these are proposals, and yes, there's some things that are not quite resolved. I get that. But it could be the difference between you being selected and someone else being selected. It's but I like to emphasize it should be something that is integral to your proposal, and just not doing it just for the sake of doing it, right? If it helps with your proposal, then I would include it, because we do have, I don't know, I think almost every other month there's an artist that has a projector or a monitor or both, or some auditory component to their show. So I think that if that's your direction, then you should make that clear in your proposal, even if it's just a proposed idea of how you plan to integrate it. It should be clear.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Yes.
So you had a limit of 6 images, JPEGs. Is videos count against that? Is there any limit there?
No, it doesn't. No, so you can submit up to 3 videos in addition to the 6 images.
Thank you.
Now the images, and the document, they can kind of support each other, right? So maybe you have some artwork that are in the JPEG format, but maybe there's an installation component that you want to share that's also an image, you can make that one of your 6 images, or you can just simply put that in the document. Maybe that's in the upper part of the document with, an explanation, a short description of what that represents. Maybe that's a component of your show that's more interactive, or maybe there's, some kind of interface that's taking place that can't be captured on a single level. So maybe a diagram is needed, and maybe you put that in a one-page document. And then maybe, object descriptions, down below, or however you want to do it. So you can be creative in how you use the document as far as how images are integrated. Maybe the 6 images are the artwork itself, or specific artworks, and then the document has images or diagrams that are more about layout and functionality and things like that.
If you wanted to use, say, a computer in your artist talk, what sort of display capability or video capability does Hillyer have itself?
Hillyer has 4 monitors and 2 projectors. And so we would, otherwise, if you need something else, you would have to bring that yourself, which, obviously some of the more IT-oriented artists have brought their own equipment because it's the medium of their choice. For example, we had an artist in January who produced her own vinyl. There was a recording that she wanted to share with the public, and she wanted it to be heard on an actual vinyl record player. So she actually created her recording on a vinyl record and played that inside her show. So obviously, if it's really that integral to your show, then those types of things you would have to create yourself. But we do offer monitors and projectors if you need them. Any other questions?
There was a question in the chat about how old the art can be.
Does the work have to be made in a certain time frame, the last 3-4 years? I would say that's not really a criteria. I think what they would probably be looking for is how it's going to be included in your current proposal. Like there should be, because you are evaluated based on innovation and originality. So what you don't want to have come up is, and I'm not saying that this has been the case, but a lot of the committee members are pretty knowledgeable about artists. They've been on other panels, they've seen other shows. They see the same thing that they've seen somewhere else. They probably won't see that as something that's worthy of being selected again because it's already been seen. So if it is something that is new, that you've already produced in the past, there has to be a component to this show that includes something that you haven't done before. If you want to get a higher rating and be competitive, because it is a competitive process. That's the only thing you have to keep in mind. It is competitive. We can't choose everybody. So they're going to only choose people that really stand out in terms of those categories of originality and so forth. It's not that your work isn't good. It's just that they have to choose someone. And so chances are they're going to choose someone who's proposing something that is original or something that they haven't seen before.
Is it okay to submit work that's in process, or is it all?
Yes, definitely. As a matter of fact, you should make it very apparent that it is. As long as you're clear on what it is that you're proposing. And you have some examples that you can show that sort of reflect the direction that you're going in. That's fine because they are proposals. They actually expect to, if you want a committee member to be a mentor to help you through the process, they're going to expect that you're seeking their advice because there are some things you haven't decided on or you haven't resolved yet. They're going to reach out to you to help you get to that point where you want to be. So they do understand the process-oriented nature of these proposals.
Yes. Phew. Hard to coordinate all this in Drive, so sorry for the background noise. How much time could one have to install if you're thinking of if I'm thinking of an installation direction, which is an expansion of my current work, how much time is there allowed for an installation to be?
That's a good question.
Stored?
I forget that because we move so fast, I sometimes forget to mention that to people who haven't had shows here before. We change shows pretty fast, and we cannot make an exception because every exhibition opens on the first Friday of every month. So that means that you have to have your show installed between the day the previous show closes and when the next show's open. So every month we close on the last Sunday of the month. After that, de-installs take place late Sunday and all day Monday. We patch and paint on Tuesday. And then the next round of artists install Wednesday, Thursday, in some cases, part of Friday. So basically you have 2 days, maximum 2.5 days to install your show. That's why I have an assistant, Cassandra Bartlett, who actually one of her main jobs is to assist people with their installations in case they need that kind of help because we need to turn over exhibitions rather quickly.
How many feet of wall space should you plan on covering?
Well, that depends on the gallery that you're assigned, and unfortunately, I cannot determine ahead of time what gallery you're going to be in. There's a floor plan on the website, and it gives you a sense of what our 3 spaces are, and also the available wall space. I can tell you though, I think it says on the floor plan too, it's about every wall is 10 feet high, except where there's ductwork is 9 feet high. But other than that, it's hard for me to determine because we get so many different types of submissions. I have to make a judgment based on those submissions where people will go. So it's kind of a fluid process as far as that goes. So yeah, I can't really determine that ahead of time.
And is there a hanging system, or can you drill straight into the wall with things?
Yeah, you could do just about anything. We do have some limitations. We're an old livery stable. It's a brick building basically with drywall over brick. There are some areas where the space is not very deep. You have some drywall and then boom, you run into brick. So we have some recommendations for how you use anchors. If you have heavy things, we haven't had a problem with anything that we've had on display, but those are just some things to keep in mind. Obviously, the ceiling is different. You can hang things from the ceiling. You can install anchors and supports that are needed.
Thank you very much. I have a question. I want to know, can an artist add workshop as part of the proposal? Maybe there will be a workshop that will involve the community to co-create a particular artwork or an installation, maybe indoor, outdoor of the gallery.
If I understood you correctly, if you want to have a workshop that's outside the exhibition space, we do not have that kind of a space, unfortunately. We're in a very limited space that's adjacent to the Phillips collection and a private club called the Cosmos Club. And so we're unable to use anything outdoors. But we do encourage people to have programs and workshops in conjunction with their exhibitions. The only limitation is that you have to figure out a way to do that inside your exhibition space. So we'll recommend ways in which artists can consider how to activate their exhibition spaces because it would have to take place in that space and not in a separate program space or in another space outside the building. So unfortunately, that is a limitation that we have.
Do you have a recommended range of roughly what kind of prices somebody comes in and wants $75,000 for a piece, you're probably not going to sell it. And so do you have sort of a recommendation based on the long experience?
No, not really, because we're a non-commercial gallery. We do not sell art. It's up to you. Artists can sell their work, of course. And we actually keep a separate price list. We don't put it on the walls, but we keep a price list at the front desk for anyone who is interested in purchasing the art that's on view. Every artist is different. So we don't have a standard, but obviously, if you want your work to be purchased by the people who are coming into Hillyer, you want to try to keep it like $200 or between $250 and $500, something like that. But then again, we're not always in the loop because we usually just refer the person to the artist directly and they negotiate that with the artist. We don't really get involved in it.
You have a question in the chat. It says, can two people apply as one emerging curator as in a co-curated exhibition?
I don't know how that's possible. You can only apply as one person, but if there is another artist that's included in your curatorial proposal, which I'm assuming that you are doing, you can include that artist in your exhibition description, and that would help clarify the difference between who's proposing as a curator and who's being included as an artist. In the case of the curatorial proposals too, I don't have this in the instructions, but if let's just say you are the curator, then you can include the information about you, what your curatorial vision is for the show, and the artist that is included. You include that in the description, but I may actually reach out to you and say, hey, can you send also short biographies on the artist as well? I make that exception for the curatorial proposals because we don't get that many, but for the time being, just for the sake of being clear about your intentions, if you're a curator, make sure it's you and only you, and include any other artists in your descriptions, or for example, in that one-page document that you can submit, you can include the additional information about the artist in that document to support your proposal. But try not to do both because it gets very confusing to the committee members.
And can you talk more about the innovation category, like perhaps some examples of past proposals that have scored highly in that, and what a panelist is innovative in the applications?
I don't know if I can really answer that clearly because I don't have the data in front of me. And like I said, we get quite a number of submissions, but and it all varies based on each committee member. They don't think alike. As a matter of fact, they're so different. And not only that, their grading are different. And there are some who, if they see someone who's like the greatest, they'll give them a 10. There are some other committee members who think they're the greatest and their highest rating would be a 7. So unless they're providing some written explanation that addresses the innovation category, I really can't be 100% clear as to what their reasoning is.
Does every, I guess every member reviews every submission, right?
That's the goal. But there are occasions when I may have 1 or 2 or 3 committee members that just cannot do it, right? So I'll divide them up into sections. And I'll say, okay, since we have 70 submissions in DMV, then you're going to select these areas. And since you have limited time, you're just going to focus on the international and national. In some cases, I will do that to make sure that I have the right committee members devoting the right amount of time that is needed to review them. If they're not able to do it, then I'll just remove them from that section. And that does happen from time to time, but I have to do that because I need for the submissions to be reviewed fairly across the board, and I just can't afford to have some people just only half reviewing. So I'll get an assessment ahead of time, and then I'll just divide them accordingly to sections that they can manage. Well, thank you very much for joining me for this session. I appreciate you attending it. Your feedback actually helps me out a great deal in terms of how to feature these calls in the future. If you have any other questions, just email me at hillierdirector@artsandartists.org. Thanks very much. Look forward to your submissions.